Happy to have you with us here today and each and every day. And now we are happy to go to the Williams Tractor Hotline. Hunter Yurachek is there, Arkansas Director of Athletics. Hunter, it's good to talk to you. Thanks for taking time for us today.
Guys, it's my pleasure. Hope you're doing well.
Doing well, thank you so much. So we've got we were talking a little bit in the first segment here of the hour about the plan and the different groups of when people will be coming back, students will be coming back. Just kind of take us through the process of putting this plan together, and as you said earlier today, putting a plan together that's specifically for the University of Arkansas.
Well, guys, we've been working on this plan for the last 4, 5, 6 weeks as we wrapped up and knew there was not going to be any further action for 2019-20 and started to look ahead at what the upcoming year would look like. And the first part of that is we had to get our student athletes and our staff back to campus. And so this plan, as the NCAA Council allowed for voluntary activity beginning June the 1st, and then the SEC presidents and chancellors voted for that to be June the 8th. We've got a phased approach by which we're going to bring our student athletes back beginning on June the 8th, beginning with our fall sports, football, soccer, volleyball, cross country, and along with men's and women's basketball. And then we've got some 2-week increments where we'll bring back spring sports, our incoming freshmen, and then finally, our winter sports is that second group. Spring sports would be the fourth group, and then intermingle, and there in the middle would be our incoming freshmen. And there's this plan is roughly about 30 pages. It talks about how we're going to disinfect and sanitize our facilities this weekend, and then on an ongoing basis, the participation of our student athletes in cleaning the equipment they use, the education and protocol that our student athletes will have to take. There's mandatory physicals. They'll be required to wear a mask in and out of the facilities. Obviously, will not be required to wear those while they're working out. There's a daily screening process. We've made so many changes to the daily lives of our student athletes, and it's all for their health and safety and their well-being as they return to campus. So I can't, this is a collaborative effort from our sports performance team, our facilities and maintenance staff. We've involved the environmental health and safety officials on our campus. It's been seen by staff at UAMS as well as the Arkansas Department of Health. And it's tailored to what we believe is appropriate for the University of Arkansas and the state of Arkansas. There'll be plans across the Southeastern Conference and across the country that will vary in how they're implemented and who tests and who doesn't test, and are there antibody tests and things of that nature. But this is what we believe is in the best interest of our student athletes here at the University of Arkansas.
Obviously, this is huge news for Razorback fans who are excited to hear athletes getting back on campus, because that gives us hope that there will be a fall sports schedule. Have you had a chance to sit down with any of the student athletes and sort of take their, get their take on all of this? How are they feeling coming back to campus?
Well, we sent out a question and answer document to student athletes and their parents early last week, and then we've had a series of Zoom calls in the evenings with student athletes and their parents to answer any of their questions. We've talked to our head coaches who have been in daily contact with our student athletes over the past 10 weeks, and our student athletes are anxious and excited to return. I think they have a great level of confidence, as do their parents, in the plan that we have in place. You can already tell the activity around campus that student athletes and students in general are starting to migrate back to the area as things across our state begin to open back up. So it's been kind of a ghost town here, especially right around campus, and you can start to see the energy start to pick up now.
We're talking with Hunter Yurachek here on Ruscin Zach. A couple of questions here. Number one, can you get into maybe not too detailed, but just kind of give us some broad strokes on if there or when there's a positive case, how will that be handled to prevent further infection? And secondly, how much, I would imagine you guys can't report who's positive because the HIPAA restrictions are in play there as well, are they not?
That's correct. And if we have a student athlete that tests positive, we would isolate that student athlete, whether that's in their residence hall or their apartment. We have some measures in place where our nutrition staff would make sure that they have the proper food that they need on a regular basis. Our athletic trainers and medical staff would check in on them. They would receive all the care and the attention that they need with the appropriate distance measures. And then we would work with the Arkansas Department of Health to do the appropriate contact and tracing and test the appropriate individuals, and as needed, quarantine those individuals. So I think we have a really good plan in place to deal with a student athlete that may test positive. And quite candidly, we feel that there's a high percentage that a student athlete at some point in time during the next months will test positive here on our campus and across campuses within the Southeastern Conference.
Obviously, you put a lot of thought into this plan, and you've talked to other athletic directors within the conference. Is your plan similar to theirs with certain tweaks for Arkansas-specific events, or is this something that you struck out on your own and did this, basically put this in place with your staff?
Well, I think it's all of the above. Yes, we have consulted together as athletic directors, but we've also, again, consulted with people across our state, the Arkansas Department of Health, Environment, Health, and Safety Group on campus. And then there was an SEC medical task force that had a representative from each campus community that was a part of that, and they provided some recommendations to us last week. And so we've taken all of the advice we have received in the council from federal and state agencies and the local agencies, and we have put that together, formulated a plan that works for us. Now, there will, again, we're not going to test all of our student athletes upon their return to campus. You will see that there'll be other schools that will do a COVID test. Some are doing antibody tests. Some are doing a combination of both. What the SEC medical working group, as well as those close to us in the medical field, advise that it's not necessarily practical to test all of their student athletes returning. Where we will test is we will test symptomatic student athletes after a daily and rigorous screening process, as well as student athletes who are coming from any of the identified hotspots, indoor, international locations.
We're talking with Hunter Yurachek here on Ruscin Zach on the Williams Tractor Hotline. What's being done to keep coaches and staff? We've spent a lot of time on the players, but some of these coaches could be into that kind of risky age area that they talk about in terms of possible infection. How do you keep the coaches and the staff members safe as well?
Well, we've got a similar plan for our staff and their return to work, and many of our staff will return this Monday, June the 1st, as will some faculty and staff on our campus. And we have some very similar protocols for how we sanitize and disinfect our office environments. We will wear masks in and out of our facilities, and when we're going down the hallways, we will continue to have Zoom meetings as they are practical, even if we're in the offices. And so we have some certain guidelines that our staff will also follow, because we do have staff of varying ages, from anywhere from in their early 20s to their early 70s, and we've got to make sure that we're looking out for each other.
Obviously, one of the big questions will be when September 5th rolls around, will there be fans in Razorback Stadium? How do you go about? Walk me through this process, because this has got to be one of the more difficult decisions you've got to make when you're talking about a stadium that could be a third full.
Sure. Well, right now our plan is it's not going to be a third full; that it's going to be full, and that's what we're working towards. Now we're going to have some practical guidelines that are in this initial plan. That we shuttle approximately 10,000 fans from outlying lots, and so how do we shuttle those fans in now, and how does that look different? And when our fans are queuing in line to get into the game, what does that look like? And when they're queuing in line for concession stands, and how we disinfect the stadium and sanitize it prior to the game and during the game, and some of those measures. And then that last piece of that puzzle will be, okay, we're going to do that for how many fans, and that will be something that we're going to wait till the latest date possible to determine what that looks like. I think we can make better decisions as an industry if we make those decisions the closer we get to the season. So what we're planning to play Nevada September 5th. Nevada's planning to be here. We're planning to go to Notre Dame on September the 12th. What that venue looks like on September 5th and September 12th, that still remains to be determined, at least here at the University of Arkansas.
Is it still yet to be determined if fans will have to wear masks?
I would say yes. I would say that that is not a definitive that fans would have to wear a mask, but here's the way I think a mask. I've got 4. I'm trying to use them as somewhat of fashion statements, and people that are a great deal smarter than me are recommending that I wear a mask. So I'm going to wear a mask. And here's what I don't want to happen is I don't want there not to be a football season because I don't want to wear a mask. And so to me, wearing a mask is a small sacrifice to make sure that we have a college football and a college soccer and a college volleyball season. If that's a sacrifice I have to make, I'll wear a mask 24/7.
Do you have a?
Because I think that.
I'm sorry. Do you have an anthracite Razorback mask?
Right now, I do not have an anthracite Razorback mask, but I have a couple of really cool red Razorback masks.
Okay. All right.
What's the plan if the plan is to have a full stadium on September the 5th? What's the plan for screening fans on their way in?
That's still to be determined, and we're going to need to take some guidance from the Department of Health and what that screening looks like. You know, we've heard that, okay, we need to take temperature readings. Those temperature readings really make sense on September 5th when it could be 95 degrees and you just walked 100 yards to get to where you're going to have your temperature taken. And is that going to give you a true read that you're symptomatic towards COVID-19? So what that screening process would look like, I think that the details of that are still yet to be determined. What we're looking at things, again, is how we queue people in line to get into the stadium and how they ride on the shuttle buses, how they queue in line for concessions and things of that nature, and how do we create some natural social distancing in those areas.
Have you been privy to any of the information from, say, NASCAR? And they've pulled off 2 events with people in their in the infield and working.
Still there?
Yes, sir. You there?
Talking with Hunter Yurachek. Hunter, you with us still?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Have you had any sort of information that you've received from, say, NASCAR or been watching what they do as far as getting people in and out of these sites? I'm curious how, like, officials, will you test them? Will they be tested independently? How's that going to work?
Again, that's part of that game day plan that has still not been flushed totally out. Obviously, we will, what I would hope is that in addition to NASCAR, that you have some other professional leagues in the NBA, Major League Baseball, National Hockey League, that get restarted, and we can take some best practices from what they learn and re-engaging fans in their venues and take that as we continue to build a plan for our venues. But, one of the things that our conference office has been really good at is they've been on some calls with the Commissioner Sankey with some of the commissioners of these major sports leagues, and there is an exchange of ideas, and we all understand how important sports is to our society, whether that's youth sports, high school sports, college sports, or professional sports. We all want sports back, and we need to go about it the right way, that everybody involved is safe and confident in that return. The coaches and the athletes and the fans and those that have to work in those venues.
We have seen across college sports programs being cut. There's even whispers of leagues merging because of the economic ramifications of this. Yet Arkansas has not had any major cuts that we know about, no programs lost or anything like that. What is the factor here where some places have had to do this and Arkansas has kept everything the way it is so far?
I will say I will give credit to my predecessor and the CFOs and our fans, and we've been able to build a strong budget, and in the process of building a strong budget, we've built a strong reserves both within the Department of Athletics and in our athletic foundation, and that's allowed us to get to the finish line of this current fiscal year without having to make any significant changes. And we submitted a budget that the Board of Trustees approved last week that has our budget for the next fiscal year. Now, with that budget for the next fiscal year, guys, it has us playing a full football season and a full basketball season and a full baseball season. And obviously, if those scenarios don't work themselves out, we're going to have to address some revenue shortfalls within our budget at that point in time. But to date, we've been in a really strong financial position because of the work that so many people have done over the last decade here within our athletic program and our athletic foundation and at our university that we haven't had to make those significant changes and some really tough decisions that others have had to make.
Just sitting here listening to you and looking at the plan that you guys have outlined, I mean, tell me if I'm misreading this, but I think you personally feel very confident that barring something unforeseen, you're going to get 12 games in this fall as far as football goes. Basketball should start on time, and we should see a back to normal sports cycle.
Yeah. Guys, I don't know as a leader of this department in the state of Arkansas any other way to think but to be positive and to look forward that we will have a full football season, soccer, volleyball, basketball. I think that's in front of us. I think that you have a commitment from our board several weeks ago to open up campuses across the UA system, across this state. I know that Chancellor Steinmetz is committed to opening up the university for on-campus learning and on-campus classes this fall, and we're committed to opening up our athletic program in the same way.
We're talking with Hunter Yurachek here on Ruscin and Zach. Do you wonder about when things go back to normal, are people a little slower to maybe criticize a coach or criticize a decision because people have missed sports for so long that maybe some of the daggers, some of the arrows that come out will be a little less sharp because, well, it's sports and it's here, so I won't complain about that this time around.
Yeah. Guys, I sure would hope so. I mean, this season, regardless of the sport, regardless of level, is going to have a huge asterisk, in my opinion, in the history books, and it's going to be the COVID recovery season. I mean, you just talk about college athletics and the springtime for so many of our sports, and in the summer are when student athletes are developing their bodies and they're developing their craft and honing their skills and preparing for the upcoming seasons. And for the most part, student athletes have missed that. Professional athletes have missed that. And so I think that the level of play will not be what we're used to as we get into this year because of that. And I think we have to be less critical and judgmental on our coaches. But hey, sports are sports, and that's what makes them fun, that we can all be, Monday morning quarterbacks around the water cooler, and if we can get it back, maybe we'll be less critical, but boy, we're still going to talk about it, aren't we?
Yeah, no question.
No question. Yeah. Who's the coach on your staff that you cannot wait for that coach's season to start so they will get out of your office and leave you alone?
I love all of our coaches, but I can tell you, and all of them are ready to roll. But I'm excited for Sam Pittman and our football staff to get rolling. I mean, he has worked really, really hard over the last 10 weeks to continue to engage our current players and build relationships with them, to continue to recruit, to install an offensive virtual conference calls and a defense. And I'm really excited for him to get started because I think he has done an incredible job keeping our football ship afloat. We didn't have one spring practice, and he has not missed a beat. And we needed that spring practice, and he's found a way to kind of solve some problems with him and his staff. And so I'm really excited for him to get rolling.
Hunter Yurachek, our guest here on Ruscin and Zach. Sir, as always, we appreciate the time and the answers, and I know there's still a lot up in the air, and so we'll try and chat again before this football season gets going. Thank you.
Guys, thanks, awesome. Enjoy the rest of your week, and thanks for having me on today.
All right, you bet. Hunter Yurachek with us on the Williams Tractor Hotline, where all of our guests join us here on Ruscin and Zach. Okay, so there's the deal. Now, what do you think? 866-285-4005. Text us, call us. There it is, right there. There's from the guy on how this is going to go going forward. Still some things that need to be determined, but other than that, a good foundation of kind of what they're looking at going forward here as football players will return to voluntary workouts on June the 8th.
I think that's the big news is they've got a plan.
Yeah.
And the thing I asked them about the stadiums, full stadium. That's what they're planning on. Yep. Okay. All right. Yep. Now we know what the plan is. Let's get there.
You know, one of the things that came up in the video call that we didn't get to address there was this is going to change how preparation takes place, because think about this. If you have a tight end meeting room with all the tight ends, If it gets in there, now all the tight ends have it.
Right.
And now what do you do? So that's going to rethink. I never even thought of that. That's how detail-oriented I feel like they've played out a bunch of different scenarios here, and that's one of them that they got brought up on the call today, that you have to rethink, can you meet with position groups in a confined space like that? Because, it gets in the quarterback room, you don't have any quarterbacks. So, anyway, all right. Your reaction, it's also complaint layaway day. All that on the way. Oh, and he doesn't have an anthracite mask. Is that good news? Can we get rid of the anthracite jerseys for all time, please? Thank you. All right, Ruscin and Zach.